Hello, my name is Quentin Stubbs, and today I'm going to be telling you about my internship at the North Kansas City Schools Education Foundation. So, the foundation was founded in 1996, but their scholarship program wasn't founded until 2004. The purpose of the foundation is to collect donations from the wider populace and use those donations in the form of scholarships and grants to support our local education system. So, a large part of the foundation's work is collecting donations. There's standard donations where you can go either online or show up to the foundation and just hand the money. There's the Friends of the Foundation program, which is where businesses can help support the foundation for certain benefits. There's the endowment fund, which is when you give a nonprofit funds, except they're not allowed to spend those funds. Those funds have to be sent and invested into the stock market, and then the foundation collects dividends on those stocks. Then there's the Alumni Fund, which is the fund where the foundation encourages alumni of NKC students to donate to the foundation to support certain programs. And then there are two events which donations are collected. There's the prom night and the fall breakfast. The foundation gives out funds to the local education system in two ways, through grants and scholarships. The foundation's grant program is called the Collar Grants, and it's named after Oak Park's first principal, Dr. Dan Collar. These grants go to support teachers who are working on specific projects, and in the 2024-25 school year, there was over 378 grants worth about $500,000 given out. The scholarships program was founded in 2004. There's about 60 different scholarship opportunities. The NKC Foundation's scholarships. The NKC Foundation has a large amount of scholarships. They're mostly small scholarships. In 2024, there's 118 scholarships worth about $100,000. Pictured here is a graph showing the organizational structure of the NKC Education Foundation. The top half of the graph shows the board of directors. They are in charge of making decisions for the foundation. The top three names are the officers of the board of directors, and the three people at the bottom are the paid employees of the foundation. The board of directors are made up of people who originally founded the foundation. All the members of the board of directors are volunteers. They're not paid for their work. They vote at board meetings to decide the policies of the foundation, and generally they will volunteer their time, not at board meetings, but in the day-to-day activities of the foundation. The officers of the board of directors are appointed by the school district. They generally have the final say in various decisions, and again, they are not paid by the foundation. They volunteer their time. The employees of the foundation are the paid members of the foundation. There's currently three employees, including myself, and since there are so few employees, there's not generally defined responsibilities of each employee. The hiring and firing process at the foundation is mainly handled by the foundation staff, the paid members of the foundation. However, the board of directors would have the final say in who is hired and fired, and the chief financial director would manage the budget of the foundation, including hiring new employees. However, the actual day to day process of interviewing candidates and selecting candidates would generally be handled by foundation staff. There is no currently a employee grievance or conflict resolution policy since there's only two employees. Um, and when there's disagreements in the board of directors, they are settled by popular vote. The foundation does offer life insurance, and it has three health insurance plans. There's copay, the HAS, and Care. There's also many optional benefits such as dental, mental health, and vision plans. The foundation does offer some long-term paid leave. The foundation also offers short or long-term disability insurance. However, if a employee is signed up for a health program offering long-term paid leave, they're not qualified for short or long-term disability insurance. The foundation does also offer hospital indemnity and critical illness plans, which are plans for if you are required to stay in hospital for an extended period of time. Now let's take a tour of Foundation grounds. Pictured here is the entrance of the office. There's the front desk off to the left. Now we move on to the foundation section of the office. The office itself is owned by the school district, but this section back here is reserved specifically for the Education Foundation. This here is Charmin's desk. She is the executive assistant at the foundation. And then this here is Midori's office, where I generally spend most of my time working. Midori is the executive director at the foundation, meaning she's generally in charge of the day to day going ons of the foundation. And this pictured here is my workspace, where I was currently making cold calls to local donors. Now keep watching for an interview with Midori Carpenter, the executive director of the Education Foundation. Okay, so Midori, over the course of time that you've been working at the North Kansas City Schools Education Foundation, what was a particular skill that came in handy when working here?
That's a great question. So I think that strong communication and teamwork are really key to our work at the Education Foundation. We work with so many different types of people, whether they're donors, staff members, parents, students, people in the community, and I think being able to listen and talk to them is really essential to what we need to do. And I think it's not just about speaking well or writing well, but it's about really understanding what's meaningful to all of those audiences about what we do. And I think my goal with communication is to really make sure that my message is resonating with all of those different groups of people.
Nice. So, what's one way that you've worked to improve your communication?
I think that listening is just as important as speaking. And I think that something that's really helpful to do is to seek feedback in all kinds of situations. So you can learn how to improve your communication and get even better. I try to put myself in the shoes of the audience. So whether that's a student or a parent, a donor, a staff person, I try to stop and think, what is information that they really need to hear from me? What are their goals? Why are they engaging with us? And I also think asking for feedback from them through surveys or other tools helps me better understand that message so that I can speak with them effectively.
Nice. Do you have any advice for me to help build my communication and listening skills?
I think the most important thing about being a good communicator is asking questions, seeking to understand what the other person wants and needs. I would say that skill or that practice of putting yourself in the other person's shoes is really helpful to start to think about what is most important to them. I would say practicing and getting feedback, like we talked about, is so useful. It's a muscle that you learn to flex, and it becomes easier and easier to do over time. And I would say to be flexible and adaptable. Not everyone is going to communicate in the same ways. Not everyone's going to receive the message in the same ways, and that's totally fine. It's all about learning and growing and trying new things.
Nice. Those are some really well thought out answers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Quentin.
I picked up many great skills during my time at the NKC Schools Education Foundation. The skills I picked up could be split into professional and technical skills. By far, the most important professional skill that I improved on during my internship was communication. There was not a lot of oversight during my work at the foundation, so I had to learn to get really good at communication to make sure that the work I was doing was up to the standards of the foundation and that I was working on the right thing and things like that. I also had to work on my problem solving. During my time at the foundation, or during my projects, many different problems came up. Some things, sometimes as simple as what file do I store this data in, or things like that. And I just had to work through a lot of small problems like that. My final professional skill I worked on was time management. Again, there was not much oversight, so I had to regulate myself to make sure I was using my time wisely and working on correct things. I started keeping multiple calendars, and I started making daily planners to help organize my time during the day. By far the most important technical skill I worked on was my cold calling. I did a cold calling project where I would call people who had previously donated and thank them for donating and just try and help build their relationship with the foundation to eventually encourage them to donate again. I going into this project, I was fairly uncomfortable with making cold calls, but uh, just the repetition and practice of doing it multiple times helped make get me comfortable with doing cold calls. I also did a project where I audited different organizations. So I am now fairly good at viewing companies' 990 tax forms, which is the tax form a nonprofit fills out, and seeing essentially what their expenses are, what they're spending money on, what things they're doing. I used many different programs during. I used many different websites during this project. I used GuideStar, which helps keep track of different nonprofits. Monday.com was a huge part of this internship. It's a uh, website that helps you organize different people's tasks and like day to day activities. And of course, Excel was present throughout the entire internship. I worked on three major projects during my time at the foundation. For my first project, I did a benchmarking project, which is where I measured the strengths and weaknesses of the NKC Schools Foundation and compared it to other education foundations in the local area. Pictured here is my work on the benchmarking project. This is a document containing just the general information I figured out about different foundations in the area. They're all compiled into this document. You can see I got the just general budget of each foundation. I got the positions of different people at the foundation, how the foundations are run, and the various programs that each foundation runs. Um, I compiled this all into the one document, and then this information that I gathered was used at the board of directors meeting to in order to help encourage discussion at that meeting and to help see what the foundation could do better and what the foundation is already doing quite well at. For my next project, I managed the grant infrastructure of the foundation. So one of the main foundation's main purposes is to give out grants to local educators. And previously, in previous years, there was almost no online information sorting. The uh, different grants were managed by hand on separate Excel spreadsheets, and it was all rather a mess. Just in recent years, the foundation moved into organizing grants on Monday.com, pictured here. You can see each grant is organized by its stage in the application process. And so my role in this project was to set up the infrastructure on Monday.com that would be using to organize these grants. So pictured here, I set up the different stages that a grant could be at, the different information we have to collect, and I also put in the current grants that we have already funded into this system. I already touched on this previously, but for my final project, I made cold calls to donors. So I would call a person who had previously donated and thank them for donating. And what this would do is help build the relationship with the foundation and encourage them to donate again in the future. This was my definitely my best technical skill I learned during this project, as I was fairly bad at doing cold calls before the internship, and now I am pretty good at doing cold calls. In conclusion, I would very much so recommend this internship to a future associate. I had a lot of freedom with what I wanted to work on, and that gave me the freedom to help work on the skills I needed to work on most. It was also a fun environment. The Midori and Charmin were very helpful with helping me improve my skills and get my work done, and it was overall a very good internship.